brought a large map representing the sea without the least vestige of land, and the crew were much pleased when they found it to be a map they could all understand. What's the good of Mercators, North Poles and Equators, tropic zones and meridian lines? So the bellman would cry, and the crew would reply, they are merely conventional signs. Other maps are such shapes, with their islands and capes, but we've got our brave captain to thank. So the crew would protest that he's brought us the best, a perfect and absolute blank.
Every cow is a map of a world to recuperate, in which life is organised outside of the market.
We actually made a map of the country on the scale of a mile to the mile. Have you used it much? I inquired. It has never been spread out yet, said Mynheer. The farmers objected. They said it would cover the whole country and shut out the sunlight. So we now use the country itself as its own map, and I assure you it does nearly as well.
I contacted a company in England called Maps in Minutes to purchase their collection of map projections, a projection being any method of representing the surface of a sphere, in this case planet Earth, on a flat plane. The company is run by Bob and Sue Harrington. I spoke to Sue on the phone and she would shout questions to Bob from time to time, presumably on the computer. She told me that the goal orthographic projection, an equal area projection, meaning all areas have the correct sizes relative to each other, which she described as looking like clothes left out to dry too long, is preferred by charities. She assumed I was Asian because I wanted some options with Asia at the centre. The Mercator was the preferred map projection for nautical purposes because of its ability to represent lines of constant true direction while being rectangular and easy to fold, but also inflates the sizes of regions, richer countries by and large, as they gain distance from the equator. Africa is 14 times the size of Greenland. My wanting to know all the ways they'd seen the world projected onto a flat plane and the countries that always ended up in the centre intrigued them. They are not often asked about the political or social implications of their beautiful vector files. and the cartographer's skills struck a map of the empire whose size was that of the empire, and which coincided point for point with it. The following generations, who were not so fond of the study of cartography as their forebears had been, saw that that vast map was useless. And not without some pitilessness was it that they delivered it up to the inclemencies of sun and winters. In the deserts of the West, still today, there are tattered ruins of that map, inhabited by animals and beggars. He took the gold from them, formed it in a mould, and cast an image of a calf, and they said, "These are your gods." To flatten is to unfold, to project, to distort, to veil under surface, to surveil, to undercover cop, to reduce to codified signs, to lower complexity, to characterize, to fix, to frame, nature to natural resources, people to citizens, to populations, to divide the political and the social, to skin, to define, to quantify, to target an audience, to atomize, to iron out creases, to lessen friction and seams, to cloak and in costume, to draw a map, to represent, to make a list. Huddle evades attempts to shroud them in their likeness by moving enough to render the rendering inaccurate, obsolete. You'll never black box our rich social life, they said. Don't be a spy. We don't like eye contact.
Protection, Your Honor!
Personhood as ritual practice. Personhood as X's in boxes. Personhood crystallizes through others, the way I vicariously consume their gestures and inflections, their auras.
Let this fly engines know it's harassing.
To entangle, to crumple up together, full of folds, to give body too many selves each, to putting ourselves together every day, to what to keep complexity, to not identify, to being beyond category, to illegibility, to the impossibility of fully grasping another's perspective, to accepting what we don't understand, to making ends meet, to renewing our habits of assembly, to the sensual conditions of that renewal, to those that cannot be named, to things that cannot be seen, to complicate and be slippery. power seeks our attention, we have to refuse their extraction of it. For all who crave either consultation or confrontation, for all who only feel alive when they're face to face with the man who represents the drive, remember that the drones who work for the man who works for the drive will absolutely come to claim our eye when we do what we do and selflessly practice what we preach to us for us. He had brought a large map representing the sea, without the least vestige of land, and the crew were much pleased when they found it to be a map they could all understand. What's the good of Mercators, North Poles and Equators, tropics, zones and meridian lines? So the bellman would cry, and the crew would reply, they are merely conventional signs. Other maps are such shapes, with their islands and capes, but we've got our brave captain to thank. So the crew would protest that he's brought us the best, a perfect and absolute blank.